teaches you how to start saving without
really
going
like
overboard. So you don't need to ditch the car and start rollerblading to work.
I look ridiculous.
Switch to manual.
You look
DJ.
ridiculous!
We got 42 seconds.
You don't need to start foraging wild berries.
I don't
I'm skeptical, but these are actually pretty good.
You don't need to sell your organs on the black market.
Lie back. This is gonna hurt.
You don't need to rent out your apartment to drifters.
I made a fire with the wood in your bedroom
That's my dresser!
and your closet
We're
door.
talking about.
You
We're
just
actually
need
talking
an
about
internet
how,
connection. Don't get left
often
behind.
bring-
Start
Oh,
your
got
personal
it.
savings plan
So
with the
you
tips
have
and
to
tools
say,
on
10
feedthepig.org.
seconds.
That way, you don't need to sell all your belongings and live in a commune.
These dungarees belong to all of us now, Tom.
Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
All right, we're live here at the Black and White series. I'm with my wonderful co-host, Miss Erica Wright.
Nicole, thank you.
I'm sorry,
I don't know why people always forget my
I
name.
know, like Nicole.
You know what I mean? Like, if I wanted all y'all to know my government, I would have told you that. No, I'm just teasing. Just teasing. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Black and White series. This, as he said, this is your girl, Nicole. And boy, oh boy, do we have a fun topic today.
I like our topic.
I love our topic.
Yeah,
What is our topic?
So what we're talking about today is we're talking about how it is that people have a tendency to use a person's past to justify current violence that is incurred. This is especially true of what we saw recently with Jacob Black, where he was shot, the gentleman that was shot 7 times in the back. A lot of things happened with that gentleman where people started bringing up his past. Well, that doesn't just necessarily justify, and it doesn't justify what happened to that man. He got shot 7 times. That doesn't justify what happened. So
Listen, it's not just, and I know that you said that it's not just him, but
right.
I don't know, you said more recent, but it is even more recent than that. Whew, I'm sorry, it's like every day it's a new person.
Right.
And I'm tired, like everybody else. But anyways, all of them
Right.
get their past brought up.
Yeah.
Every single last person, even down to Emmett Till. I mean, they even tried to throw dirt on his name.
Well, and okay, yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And it's been happening for years. I mean, and it continues to happen even in after that person's dead. People still try to throw bad stuff onto Malcolm and
Yes.
Martin.
Yeah.
And
You tell me what you think, but I think that this really got popular when I'm so sorry to forget his name. The one who the cop was kneeling on his neck.
George Floyd.
So yeah, because what's the name of the black girl that we decided to trade? Candace, is her name Candace something?
Candace Owens.
Yeah, that she was one of the biggest voices behind
Yeah.
talking negatively about George,
Right.
because of his past.
Right.
And like you said, there's so many posts that you'll see, and then you'll read underneath it, oh, but he did this or he did that. And at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't care if he was walking out with a stolen television.
Right.
Does that mean that man deserves to get to get shot, murdered, killed?
Right, right.
Like, come on, that's not even how protocol goes. It's not even how they're trained. We had Officer Sharp on here, and
Yeah.
they don't. That's not the first
No.
thing that they're supposed to do
Right.
when it comes to arresting somebody who is or has committed a crime.
Absolutely correct. Well, yeah, and one of the things that we've talked about significantly too is that, as you pointed out, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what you've done in the past. What matters is that law and order. If we're saying it is law and order, their responsibility. Your responsibility is to arrest the person. Your responsibility is not to execute the person. You are not the judge in our justice system. You are not a peer of a jury of their peers, although we can talk about that certainly further, but you're none of those things. So your job is to arrest that person. And what we've seen is people get arrested or shot or killed, and then to justify the execution that happens, we say, well, that person had this. Well, first of all, we don't even know if the public defender that defended that person at one time didn't convince that person to take a plea bargain to get out of whatever they're getting at.
It doesn't even matter.
Right. I mean, there's.
I don't care if somebody just committed cold blood murder.
Right.
It doesn't give the police any sort of justification or reason to shoot and kill them.
Nope. And then,
Period.
Right. That's because that's not your job. Unless you're,
Exactly. That's not your job.
Right. Unless somebody's getting actually killed, like you're a police officer that's
Right.
actually getting shot at, then you have justification to shoot back, right?
And even still, in some of those cases,
Yeah.
it's obsessive.
Yeah.
The case years ago where the groom-to-be, a day before his wedding, got shot and killed in his car like 20 some odd times.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and we look at the case of Breonna Taylor, where her fiance or boyfriend at the time shot at the officers, and then they shot back 20-something times.
in his home, and he had the right to, because they B&E without saying who they are, without saying what they were doing. He had a license to carry,
Yep.
and you're allowed to shoot.
Right. Well, and I've often said, and I've said this to several of my friends, the officers were lucky it was that gentleman that was the one shooting, because if you had come busted into my home, it would have been a shotgun that would have been
Absolutely.
shooting at you,
Absolutely.
and you wouldn't have survived it.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
like, those officers lucked out that they didn't die from what was happening, and then of course they shot and killed a wonderful woman who still has not received justice, and so that's a big problem.
You talking about Brianna?
Yeah, I'm talking about Breonna too.
Well, they just gave her family $12 million.
I understand. I don't.
Oh, but you just because they're not
They haven't arrested.
arrest the guys. Yeah, well, good luck with that.
Long shot, but I
I
still
know,
look for justification.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
well, a lot of people are saying that because they got awarded money that's justice, which is something else that gets on my nerves.
No.
Because the justice is arresting. It's not about the monetary gain.
No.
And it's not going to, you know what I mean? The family is not going to bring them back, but
No.
why can't her murderers go to trial and the jail like everybody else?
Agreed.
But here's what I don't understand about America, right?
Okay.
So, America's interesting, and especially to those who like to sit and think that there isn't a race problem. Here we are talking about how these people who have been murdered by police,
Yeah.
how the police are receiving justification based off of the people's, pasts, right? Their skeletons.
Right.
What I find interesting about America is that, they took out or are trying to take out most Little League sports or whatever where everybody wins. There's no winners and losers anymore.
Right.
Chris Rock does this whole thing about bullying, his comedy special, and how he likes bullies and he's for bullies, so to say, because, it made certain people stronger and da-da-da-da-da, right? But how the world is so ultra-sensitive that it's like I have to have one way of thinking, I have to talk one way, I have to be one certain kind of way,
Right.
so that I don't offend other people. I can't have a difference of opinion without just saying, hey, we got a difference of opinion. It has to be, well, because you don't agree with this and you're wrong, which I don't necessarily agree with. However, when it comes into context of black people, that's when all those rules are out of the window. That's when all that fairness is gone. That's when all that equality is gone. That's when there is a winner and a loser. Of course, we know who the loser is. That's when it's like everything else, is anti-bully, one, you know what I mean? Like they
Right.
put on, but then when it comes to us, all those rules don't apply.
The different set of rules,
Absolutely.
which is part of where, that's where systemic racism comes in, right? Is like, that's part of that explanation is that, there's a different set of rules that we operate by.
Right.
And people operate at those different set of rules. Let me ask you a question. What do you think are some of the things that you would like to see done to change that, and to take it in a new direction? What are we doing? What can we do?
Who is we?
Us, everybody in the world.
What can everybody in the world do
Yes, differently
to?
to end systemic racism. How do we change it? That's not an easy question, right?
it's a question that I don't have an answer to,
Okay.
or anybody else. I mean, we've got a lot of ideas and theories. Definitely taking one step at a time, discussions like this, being bold, being
Okay.
honest, not being afraid to stand out, not being afraid to stand together. But it's not us that has the answer, it's you guys.
Okay.
Because you guys are the ones who built it.
Agreed.
And, you know, a lot of times when we as black people call, you know, white people out, it's you guys are always playing the race card, or
Right.
everything isn't a race problem, or,
Right.
you know what I mean? So it's like, we can't change anything. There's the solution. You tell me what the solution is.
Well,
All we're trying to do is come against a system that's been designed for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years to keep us under.
I think the first thing that I've come to a conclusion about, or have been thinking about lately, is we have to recognize the system we built in the first place and acknowledge it. I've been reading a really great book by Ibram X. Kendi. It's
Yeah.
called Stamped from the Beginning. It's about the history of racist ideas. And one of the things that he talks about pretty well in that book is he talks about the ideas that, you know, some of the founding fathers prior to even George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and those guys, the ideas that were being used at the time, like for example, Cotton Mather, whose father was the founder of Harvard University, was incredibly racist and had a lot of issues. And he was a Puritan pastor, and so he was out, not only was he doing this, but he was out there preaching it to his flock, that there is a difference. One of the things that I've learned that was something that shocked my system, if I'm being honest, is when I was reading some of his work, is Puritans and even Anglicans at the time, they were preaching that black people that were taken from Africa had black souls, and that the only way for them to reach heaven was by making them slaves and beating it out of them. So you're preaching that. But then, here's an interesting thing that happened with slave owners prior to the colonies, and even during the colonies, not allowing slaves to become Christians, because if they did, there would be an ethical question about whether or not they can and should be slaves. So they were actually not allowing African slaves and black slaves to be able to become Christians in an effort to prevent them
Well,
from being able
initially, but then then they made them, and they actually.
Yeah.
This is why black people have a struggle with identity,
Mhm.
because the slave owners didn't allow the enslaved, because they weren't slaves,
Yes.
but they didn't allow the enslaved to
Sure.
speak their dialect. They didn't allow them to practice their traditions.
Mhm.
They didn't allow them to do. Did you know that they had to design the Underground Railroad and how they braided their hair?
I did not know that.
Yes. So it wasn't until they made your boy Nat Turner, start preaching the Bible to the enslaved, but he was only allowed to preach certain parts of the Bible to try to get them to practice this religion, which wasn't the true form of Christianity anyway, because
Right.
at this point they had omitted Bibles, and again he was only allowed to teach certain passages
Right.
that would teach the enslaved to follow this master. So, just adding the other side to the background that initially maybe, but not, you know what I mean? They
Yeah.
cut all of that out because, they wanted to wipe out our identity.
Which is, of course, the huge issue, huge problem. There are so many, in my reading and what I'm learning, there are so many things that I didn't even begin to realize. Hey!
We just have some comments, that's all.
Okay, you want to read it?
Well, sure. So, Derek says that one thing we can do or we conclusively, all of us what's the word I'm trying to say? Inclusively can do
Sure.
is by stop hiring racist police officers. I agree. We talked about this before that they
Yeah.
should go through a rigorous hiring process, and maybe not even rigorous because it doesn't have to be rigorous. It's a matter of time and what people say and how they see things that'll let you know that there's some underlying issues there. So
Yep.
you know what I mean. There's that. Kidway says that these are truths that Black folks have to deal with. He's glad that you're educating yourself because we have been here. We live through this every day. So.
To be fair, where I'm at in my reading is about Thomas Jefferson, right around there.
Mhm.
So I haven't even really gotten through like the 1800s. I haven't gotten through the 1900s. So that's
Ooh.
yeah. I got 40 chapters. What?
So the punchline from Kidway, of course,
Yeah.
shout out Kidway Cooper. He also has a podcast that he's doing too. But he said that's what privilege looks like. The
Okay.
privilege to walk through life without these truths, without having to experience it. So
I agree.
again, for the listeners and for yourself, this is another example of what it feels like to be privileged.
Okay.
You know,
And those, and I agree, and I think that's why part of the reason why we're doing the show is so that we can kind of learn from this process. And there are things I have to do. What's up?
they're on a roll today.
Okay.
So unfortunately, we don't have Officer Sharp here. However, somebody asks, Troy Harris says, why don't all the good police we always hear about lock arms and walk out of every precinct in America and ask for the removal of police unions? It is these unions that are putting officers' lives in danger and condoning murders and murders.
That's a great question.
Ed, he said, and redlining.
Yes, redlining is awful,
Yeah.
especially considering, and it's really bad in the
Well,
state.
let's talk about what it is in case there's listeners who have no idea what we're talking about. No, go for it.
Oh, so redlining is when you don't allow people, specifically Black people, to purchase property or own property in certain areas. And the reason why you do that, in part, is because it's viewed as a way to devalue that property. And so you redline them, and the other thing is that you give them mortgage rates and interest rates that are different and higher for people who have similar credit scores. That's my understanding of what redlining is.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. And so you pretty much what you're doing is you're taking away what that does is take away generational wealth, because interest rates are very important, as you know. If I pay more interest, I have less wealth, and it takes me longer, or it takes more of my money out. What's up?
They're telling you, Kidway's telling you to spread the word. You'll be better for it. The truth is the main perspective that should be addressed at all times.
Yeah.
And yes, we totally agree.
Yeah, and redlining is well, and so to build on that, a friend of mine and I had a conversation about the concept of redlining, right? And so in the state of Ohio, the way that we raise revenue for schools is based on property value.
Correct.
So you have levies. So if you inherently say that
Keep going.
certain groups of people, Black people, for example, can only live in a certain area, then you devalue that property. What you're devaluing then is the education that the students are receiving, because they get less money to put into that system. And so as a result of that, you now have a system set up where it's continuous failure, or a vicious cycle that continues on and on and on. So one of the things that we can do is we can get rid of the system that allows for students to have different amounts of money based on property value, raise that property value, and then every student gets the exact same amount of money. Or in some cases, some students get more money to create equitability in the education system. So those are some of the things that we can do to help in redlining. What?
Nothing, because who's trying to FaceTime you on the Black and White series? Maybe they had something to say. Who knows?
That was my buddy.
Oh, so even though you're not a cop, they really want to know what your opinion is on the police and the union thing.
The police union thing?
Yeah.
So specifically, I'm guessing the question is, should good police officers walk
Not
out?
should. How come they don't?
Or how come they don't? Okay. So I'm not a police officer. I don't know the
Yes, I
answer to
said that,
Right.
and I said that part too.
Right. So I think that they don't because I think what ends up happening is a series of tribalism, right? We have this idea of, in America especially, that you slowly fall into a tribe of people that have similar ideas, and that when you challenge that group's ideas, even if it's wrong, you're still willing to stand up for that idea, right?
Oh, that is called. They just said it on the radio on the way over here
Right.
in this seminar class that I had to take. It'll come to me, but it was like really dope.
Yeah.
What it's called now, but yeah, that's exactly what it is when people don't want to let go of their thought process, even when it's proven
Right.
that it's wrong.
Are we talking about confirmation bias or cognitive dissonance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So,
Something different. Because it's about how they romanticize it in their mind.
yeah.
So I
Well, we
forgot.
romanticize police officers, we romanticize a lot of things, unfortunately. And when it's a job. But being a police officer is a job, so we do romanticize that.
When you talk to your other white people,
Okay.
I was going to say something else. What do you guys, I mean, like why, one of the biggest questions that, people of color always talk about is reparations.
Right.
And we just don't understand why can't we get it? Like it's proven beyond a shadow of a doubt of what black people went through, their ancestors. Right. I mean, it's also proven how the government has given everybody else money and or land and or benefits because of how America treated those people. So why, though, can we get nothing, especially when 90% of this entire country was built on our backs?
I'm going to actually talk a little bit about something that I went through 2 weeks ago. And it leads into this, because this was a question I had for myself. I'm really interested in buying a home in the very near future.
Okay.
Okay? Mm-hmm. And I asked myself this question, and it's an interesting question for me. How do I buy a property, or how do I buy land, when at one time we stole that land from somebody else, and then we forced another group of human beings to work that land and to put their blood and sweat and tears into it? This was a question I had for myself. And I said, would I be morally right to purchase that land and become a landowner? That was a serious question that I was going through and I still go through it. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, it's an interesting question that I go through.
Sweetheart, you could, yes, buy the land. It's 2020. There's reasons why you need to purchase land. And honestly, if I can be frank, there's so many other ways that you could sit and ponder on things that you could change that isn't buying the land. I mean, that's the case. Are you going to cut down the trees that are going to be where the land at that you're buying? Because I guarantee you there's more blood coming out of the roots of those trees than there are in the land. You feel me?
I do. But this is me at 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes, and, staring at my ceiling. So those are some of the things I was thinking about.
Yes.
So let's get back to answer your question specifically about reparations. Right?
All right.
Why should we pay for reparations? Here's number one reason why. It should be paid because for one, work was done. Right now, the enslavement of an entire people. Right, work was done. We did something that was awful. We brought people from their country. We took away their past. We took away their heritage. We took away their ancestry. Then those same group of people rebuilt that for themselves, built a new culture, built a new heritage, built a new ancestry. And it is at the very least.
Y'all didn't work for it and y'all got it.
That's true. And you should definitely receive it.
I'm just saying, because your first reason was because y'all worked for it. So?
Well, I'm just working through my mindset.
I know. And I'm just challenging your mindset.
I like it. I do. I do.
That's all. I'm just saying. See, it's a level thing.
Yeah, right.
And to me, it's a level thing. And it's like, And your answers are great, by the way. And I know I cut you short because you probably were going there. But again, this is what we do. Like, this is just me challenging you, just because you allow me to do this, right? The thing is
I
that.
don't think it's allowing, but
Well, what is it?
I think it's a mutual conversation.
Well, sweetheart, there's a lot of people who don't want to be in your position.
Okay,
A lot of white people.
that's true. I won't lie.
So, and allow meaning they won't even allow the discussion. They won't have the they don't want to be open to challenging themselves to get better. I mean, even in my own personal discoveries, doing that work hurts. It hurts.
Yeah.
It's not hard. It's not easy. So, that's what I mean by allow, like, because you're open to this.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Here's something interesting. We're speaking of reparations. Do you know one of the first groups of people to get? This is Dr. Kennedy talking. One of the first people that received reparations were actually the families of the women who died in the Salem witch trials. The women who were killed during the Salem witch trials, their families received reparations, and they were one of the first groups of people in the United States to have that happen. So it's not like, obviously, we've mentioned.
And these were white people.
Well, yeah, pretty much, yeah, I think so.
Yes.
And so, yeah, so it's obviously, and what's even goes even further is Cotton Mather's father, whose name I can't remember right now, was one of the people that was primarily responsible for the Salem witch trials, which tells you a whole other group of things. But yeah, I mean,
I had a point to make, but I forgot where I was going.
we're talking about reparations.
I know, but you said something earlier that I wanted to expand on it. I don't remember. But so, okay, so, I don't know. It just bothers me that nobody chooses to. It's like when people of color say reparations, everybody's like, but yet every other affected race in America has gotten.
Can I tell you some of the answers?
Oh, I know what I was saying. I was challenging your thought process. Doom. Here we go. Because, your first comment was because you worked for it. And I just, it just feels like sometimes that it's a level of things where I was going with your, with people's mindsets, right? And it was like, you didn't say, well, you guys should get reparations because we got them. Because everybody that got here, everybody that came, y'all came over here to other people's land, not y'all, but
Yeah.
Europeans came over here to this land and took it.
Yes.
Took it. You know what I'm saying? Like from everybody that was already here.
A lot of evil things to do.
Yeah, they did. Even when people were just here, like, let's break bread. You guys can have this whole side of the. Yeah. Oh no, that wasn't enough. We wanted this side and this side too. Yeah. So just it's that was just a subconscious. You didn't mean anything by it, but it was just a level thing. How you, in your mind, you place this on a level that was lower than how your ancestors were, as far as how the question goes.
That's interesting.
Why do you think we should get reparations?
Right.
You know what I mean? And it was just almost. You know what I mean? I'm just picking on you, but
no,
I'm just challenging you.
And so what the good point about that is that now that's something that I need to be thinking about. Like, where's my mindset in concerning this? Do I believe that reparations need to be paid up? Yes. But the why of it is important, just as important as
exactly.
So yeah, I mean, and I get that. And maybe that's part of the learning process that I need to have here is the why of it. Why are we doing this? And
it's always the why.
Right. And so
that's the hard part.
Yeah, and it's hard for me. I'm not going to lie to you, but I'm glad that you're here to include me in the process so that we can have that discussion.
It's hard for me too.
That
yeah.
I need
the
that.
why for everybody, anybody doing any sort of life development, life change.
Yeah.
The why is always going to be the biggest and the hardest question.
Yeah, I mean, just why did I start teaching here? Why did I go back to school 12 years ago? Why did I do any of those things? Why?
So, comments from the Peanut Gallery.
We have a Peanut Gallery?
We do.
All right.
They say, Kibble says, no one has done more for the United States than Black America. no one has sacrificed more. White folks built their wealth because of government subsidies and because white men were the only ones legally allowed to own property.
Correct.
Troy says he believes the Jews who got their just reparations for their ancestors have not only a responsibility but should be the first race using their power and influence to push lawmakers to give African American reparations. They have the money to lobby for us. That is true. I mean, definitely we would get more done if everybody was collectively sticking together. But then again, we go all the way back to the same thing, the same narcissistic view, which is we good, then it's not my problem. As long as I'm good, then that's their problem. But once people start adopting all these issues as a my problem, as a we problem, then we'll get better. But it's easy to go, well, we're good over here, so good luck to y'all.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Helping other people out is an important part of it, and that's what I think. That was one of the. I actually want to get back to one of the conversations or one of the pieces that you had mentioned earlier about why is it that white folks or white people don't want to pay out reparations. And I've had these conversations before, and one of the things that's consistently brought up is, and this is an old hat, unfortunately, is, slavery was 100 and something years ago, right? Well, that doesn't really matter. Or, or if you want to go super racist, that, we give them all welfare and stuff. Of course, that's not true.
But then when you tell them there's more white women on welfare than black women, what do they say?
Right. And that's one of the statistics I bring up is like.
Right. That's the fact.
There's a statistic. You actually have a statistical anomaly. There's actually more white folk that are on the welfare system. So obviously that's.
But what do they say when you say that to them? Oh, so you don't get a real response then?
No. Here's what I find is most people have canned answers that they have been programmed to believe, and this goes back to that kind of concept of tribalism. I was watching a video, a TED Talk. This guy was talking about, he used to be a member of the KKK. And his job now, or what he does now, is he actually goes in and he finds these guys and he pulls them out. And he helps to reform members of the KKK, Aryan Brotherhood, and all that stuff. And he talks about, because at one time he was the lead singer of a hate metal band, and so his music still exists out there, and the lyrics are terrible. Right. And he talks about having to live with that every day of his life, and how he helps to pull people out. And one of the things that is often not seen that it happens is that the leaders of these groups, they often prey upon, especially young white men who are disenfranchised by the system themselves. Maybe they didn't like something that happened. And so they take that disenfranchisement and they say, well, we're going to take care of you. We're going to love you. He'll feel that tribalism.
They definitely prey on the broken.
And then, one of the guys that he had talked to was a guy who had been this kind of anti-Muslim dude, and he actually went in and he started talking to him, and he actually introduced him to the leader of a local mosque. And those two actually became friends eventually. They actually now have a nonprofit that they work together on. This former member of Aryan Brotherhood and this leader of this mosque, they work together to have in a nonprofit, right? And so the question is, or one of the things that you have to do is you have to go in, and one of my responsibilities that I'm dealing with right now is, how do I go into places and start pulling people out? How do I pull them away from that level of tribalism that they've fallen into, where they feel loved by somebody that is teaching them hate? That's something that
That's a great question.
I look at, because I don't believe that at 2 and 3 and 4 years old you are capable of hate. You can be capable of not liking naps, right? But you're taught that hate. So how do you unteach the hate somebody who's been taught? That's something.
Well, I got 2 questions for you. One, what did the dude say in the book? What changed him?
The guy that was the speaker at the TED Talk, it was his wife and his child. So he had married this woman,
A white woman?
A white woman.
Okay.
And they had a child together. And the woman eventually left him because of what was happening. And she said, I'm leaving you because of of this stuff. And I'm taking my child with me. And that was part of the reason why what changed it. There were some other things there, and obviously I don't have exact.
So he stopped being a racist because his wife and kid was going to leave him?
There's other things that goes into it. I don't know. It's been a while since I've watched this video. I could share it on our Facebook if you
I
want.
was just, because it's just, I mean,
There are other
I
factors.
feel like then he's probably still a racist. He just is hiding it because if that's the reason, like that's not for you. You're doing it for her. So my second question brings me to what changed you? You weren't racist, but you definitely had a lot of
Still do.
implicit biases. One's way worse than you are now because those are the ones that are in the forefront. Now we just digging through. But you know what I mean? Initially you had to say, I need to change something for a reason. So like, what made you change?
A couple of things happened. I think one thing that started happening is I started.
Yes, you probably said this, but because this is a new topic, new listeners, we gotta say it again. You know?
What's up?
No, go ahead. Like I probably asked you.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think consistently come back to is number one. I started teaching here, and I think part of it is that I started teaching young men and women who were black, and I started to see myself as a person that didn't understand a lot of things. And so I started to make changes, and I started to realize, I'm sitting here with wonderful groups of human beings. You were one of my students, and you were awesome. You were amazing human beings.
I was sorry.
And I said, you know what? I need to change myself. And there are great people.
Why though?
Because what I was doing was wrong.
What were you doing?
Being complicit. And by being complicit, I mean by not being active and saying, this stuff needs to stop. What I feel needs to stop. The idea is not enough to say I'm not racist. The idea is I have to be anti-racist, right? So I can't just say, it's one thing for me to say, I believe that reparations need to be paid. It's another thing entirely for me to make active steps to say that needs to be done.
Right. So what changes from your thought process to you being active in it?
I want to say it was just, there was a moment, there's this moment of I refer to everything in movies or in storytelling, right?
So do I.
So the call, for the lack of a better term, the call to adventure, because that's a big thing in storytelling, right? There's that circle of storytelling. It was the call to adventure. And to me, that needed to happen. So at some point, I got called to this. It was a calling. It's not something.
It just came out the clear blue sky. It wasn't something else that kind of triggered it. It was just.
Well, I mean, the death of George Floyd is definitely something. Meeting you guys, being having wonderful students.
But was it his particular death, him, prior to all the other ones?
No. There was a lot more. I remember Tamir Rice. That one killed me. That one killed me a lot.
I'm asking you these questions because your answers are the key. That is what you do to get other people.
Yeah.
Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
All of that. And people need something to identify with, right? So you use your story.
Yeah.
You use what changed you. You used, and then you used why, and then you use, as a result of this change, this is what you gained.
Yeah.
People need to see it. They need to feel it,
Yeah.
and then they'll react. So
Yeah.
that's how you do it.
And you can see
That's how you go in a house and pull them out.
I'm having a tough time with it right now. I know.
That's okay.
All right. But I mean, it was just a series of things. Like, I saw too many people die.
Yeah.
I mean, one is too many, but I saw too many people
No,
die.
absolutely.
And I can't do that anymore.
That's what you do. You use that.
Yeah. One of the things that I say often is I have for years read comic books, right? How can I, as a human being, love those superheroes and not be them? It's the truth.
That's your humility showing. I'm with it. I'm feeling it. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for your transparency.
Yeah.
And you're doing a great job.
Okay. You know, would Superman let this happen?
He was only human.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sort of. Yeah.
sort of, right?
But those are the things that I think about, right? It's like,
Absolutely.
you gotta do the right thing.
Woo-wee. This was a deep discussion today, huh?
So yeah, I mean, it's where I'm at. And I think the thing that frustrates me the most is that I can't change it by myself. I know that, and I have to fight really hard.
It's okay. As long as you're fighting,
Yeah,
you're doing the work. One person.
yeah,
That's all it takes.
I know, but it's tough sometimes. But
It is tough.
But I will say this: as tough as it is, it's not nearly as tough as the people that I know love and deserve.
It doesn't matter. I hate when people do that. We're not about to downplay,
My feelings?
yeah,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
downplay the struggle.
No. Yeah.
You know, we're not comparing.
No. Okay. Well, yeah, we shouldn't do that.
No, I mean this isn't about that. That's not the main idea here.
Yeah.
Is whose struggle is harder.
Right.
We're not accomplishing anything by
Yeah.
bringing that up or
Okay.
making that be the target.
Okay.
What we need to stay and continue to focus on
Yeah.
is progress and
Yeah.
doing the work. Period.
Let me ask you this question: do you think we've made progress?
Yes.
Yeah. That's tough for me because I know sometimes it's very frustrating to not see progress, and I don't know. I guess
You see the progress in everything you say. You see the progress every time we do this pod.
Yeah.
You see the progress in what you're reading.
Yeah. Yeah.
These are all steps. Nobody put a gun in your head and told you to do any of this.
Right. But those and
So you
That's a really
screw
good point.
that. You own that
yeah.
and let that be your strength. And you use that
Yeah.
that weight, and that's how you go get those people at that house.
Yeah. It's tough, but it's got to be.
Of course it is. Nothing worth having is easy.
No. Right? That's what I tell my students, right? So I should be saying the same thing, right?
Well,
Yeah.
in a way you are. I just said it for you, and it came from you. So there you
Yeah.
go. There you
Well,
go.
why did we get so deep?
Well, I don't know, but it's like 3:00. So what's your thing?
I think we've had a great episode. That's what
I do
think.
too. Oh no!
What happened?
Oh, it was kicked me off. But I just, Kidway says that the guilt that you feel is because you've been walking around blind, because the heaviness of those truths will keep you up at night.
Yeah.
And that's, but that's okay. At least you got feelings that you're not desensitized.
I was watching Dr. Angelou the other day, and she said to Oprah, "When you know better, you do better."
Easy.
Right. And that was like a moment for me.
And even then, we still fall and stumble.
Yeah.
Even then,
Yeah.
even when we know,
Yeah.
it's hard to break inbred years of habits. It's hard
Yes.
to
Generational.
It's hard to constantly look at yourself in the mirror because all you want to do is get acknowledgement for all the things that you have done.
Yeah.
Yet you still constantly got to look in the mirror, and yeah, you do. Because the work never stops.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that show that.
And this is E. Nicole with the Black and White series.
And Doozer.
And my homie Doozer coming at y'all
Yeah.
with love, peace, transparency, happiness. We're going to see y'all in 2 weeks talking about, are we going to do?
Let's do the one that you brought up.
Yeah. We still are going to do the emasculating of the black male too, so keep that in your bookmark. But we're also going to keep maybe lighten it up a little bit by 5 things we wish all black friends wish their white friends wouldn't say. So stay tuned in 2 weeks. I can't wait to see you guys. It's been real. I'm out.
Don't forget to press back to auto DJ. Okay. Now you gotta hit something in the queue. Anything in there, just double click on it. And then play. Oh.
That was a good 40